of acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. And I had the privilege of attending, along with a few other councillors, session with an Indigenous leader, which they spoke about how when settlers came to North America, they were welcomed with open arms and treated with respect. And that the Indigenous people were shocked how they became a target and basically herded and not respected. And what they seek, what reconciliation is that respect. The same that they gave to us, and in a lot of cases are still given to us. So let's reflect on that respect and decent treatment of each other. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Maybe the wasn't supposed to start it. That being at 7, so you put that as summary, right? And we want. Fine. So we're going to, what are we doing next? Is it 7.2 or are we going to, how are we going to? Number 8. Okay, presentations. So we have a presentation from Kelly Warden from Sion, presenting building condition assessments linked to financial report 27, 2023. Kelly? Do we have Kelly?
Hi. Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Kelly. Go ahead.
So I'm just going to get this rolling. Hopefully y'all can see. So first off, my name is Kelly Warden. I am representing Sion. We are a group of engineers and building scientists, and we were brought in to perform building condition assessments for a portfolio of your buildings. I'm going to go in my presentation. We'll touch a little bit on what we were doing and what are a high level of what the findings were. So we have issued reports for each of these sites that we did our assessments at this stage. I'm not sure if that data has been presented at this stage, but I do have a high level summary with me today. So I'm going to start by sharing this so I can remember how Zoom works. There we go.
Yes, but he'll be sharing the screen.
Is that good? Can we see this? So, starting off, building condition assessments. What were we doing? So we did a visual review on a series of your properties. Sometimes it was a single building, sometimes it was a series of buildings, depending on the site. And what we were doing is a high-level visual review of the condition of each building at the site, and providing a capital plan over a 10-year period for any major expenditures that we identified during the site walkthrough. So we were identifying building condition primarily, as well as a handful of other things that we brought up as a call it a value add service, things like accessibility needs where that was important, life safety issues where we've felt they were important. I mean, they're always important. And then a handful of other small things we usually throw in there too, just because we want these to be as helpful to you as we can possibly make them. So I'm going to go through a little bit of what we were doing. So I'm going a little bit out of order here, so forgive me. But so we are doing building condition assessments. We're basing it off of an ASTM standard, and we're doing a visual inspection of each facility. So we're not doing any destructive testing or anything like that. We're just reviewing the building, its major components, and we're identifying upcoming repairs and replacement based on end of life life cycles and for intermittent damage and that sort of thing that would affect the replacement cycle of a particular item. So a simple example of that is if you have a building that is clad with metal siding and you drive a truck into it, that's going to, on our scale, it's going to reduce the replacement life cycle of that siding. So we're trying to break things down component by component on a high level so that you have a schedule. Schedule is not the right word to use, but it can be useful in that term for projecting when you can expect to have to spend money to deal with a particular building component. So we're following the ASTM 2018-08 property standard guide for property condition assessments. We're referring to the building code and the AODA requirements for the accessibility for Ontarians with disabilities. And we are developing a financial planning tool for this. It's important to identify that we are not going through and doing things like destructive testing. So we're not cutting holes in any walls. We're not doing anything that would adversely affect the performance or use of the building. Or we're also not reviewing designs as they exist or doing any design calculations. We're not testing equipment in terms of we're not trying to see if your HVAC unit is putting out the CFM and BTU that it was designed for. We're just basing things primarily on age of equipment, age of a component, and condition of that component as well.
Kelly, do you see that? Can you see our screens now? You see the presentation is up.
Yes, I can.
So you can go ahead with the presentation. Thank you.
All right. Hopefully you've been able to follow along, but you haven't missed anything except the words up to this point. So we should be good. So our 2023 BCAs. So we did the visual reviews earlier this year, around June primarily, if I recall correctly. The process was to visually review each building that was part of the portfolio for each site, which is where most of the information is coming in. And while we are on site, we are also trying to speak with someone who had some amount of knowledge or history about the facility in question. And that's just to get as much current background information as we possibly can. And it's for identifying things like roof leaks or drafty windows, or whether or not the heating or cooling system works. Because we were there in June, we were able to identify cooling systems for the most part, but heating, for example, it would have been shut off or not functional or not used at that time. So we rely on these interviews to make sure that we're getting information, current information from people. The other thing we're doing is we're reviewing any drawings, maintenance manuals, other kinds of documents that are being sent to us regarding each building, and is again just to try and get as much context and history for each facility as we can get. We're breaking down, so this is a little bit of the structure of the report. So if you read through, you'll see headings just like this one. This is an extract from the 137 Stanley Street, and so you'll see the heading, which is in this case services, and a line by line breakdown of the component that we're talking about, a description of what it is, a condition, a statement about its condition, and then any recommendations that we have regarding that component. So overwhelmingly, a lot of these just say replace them at the end of their service life because that's the reasonable thing to do. But where there are specific issues with whether it's damage or a piece of equipment that is just not functioning for whatever reason, we're trying to address those at the same time as well. So this is where you would read that information. We've given a breakdown of each facility in terms of cost per year. So I think my slides are probably not in the best order for this. So, but with that information, we present one of the RFP requirements, which is your facility condition index, which is just an expression as a percent of the building's overall condition. Basically, it just takes the cumulative value of, and we use a 3-year term for this, a cumulative value of the projected repairs over 3 years, divided by the total theoretical replacement cost of the building. Theoretical because it is component by component, and it stands to reason that for a building's foundations, for example, you can't replace those without replacing the entire building. So it's a very theoretical value. So in this example given, which I believe is still Stanley Street, the FCI is 1.9%, which is generally good. Anything between 0 and 5% is generally considered good condition. I believe 5 to 15 on average is considered average, and then above that you start getting into less than great or poor condition. It's a metric, so just because you have a high percentage doesn't mean that your building is ready to fall down. It just means that it maybe needs a lot of attention in order to get it up to a state of good repair. The other metric that we included from the RFP was a cost per square foot value year by year. So that is also included in each report for each building. So the way we presented this is half the table. This is the short-term side, but the long-term side is effectively the same thing, where we have just put component by component the cost for repair or replacement of that component in its projected year. So this was a 10-year study, so we covered up to 2034, and so the cost and timing of each of the components is presented in this table.
Now, do you want questions as we go or at the end?
So I'm actually going to give everybody a moment for questions right now, because that's kind of our high level summary of what we're doing. And from this point forward, I'm going to be going over the specific facilities. So if there are any questions, please, the floor is yours.
Councilors, any questions on the pavilion with you had $5,000 for 2024 for the exterior steps. Are we replacing those in 2024? Aren't they? Didn't we just do this? No.
So, Madam Mayor, we did replace some of the exterior steps, but not the lower ones.
Okay.
We did it right at the building itself, but not in the grass.
I know
Step
exactly
up.
what you mean.
We did not do that second set of stairs.
Thank you. And there's no other questions for that. Thank you, Kelly. Go ahead.
Okay, excellent. So we'll start out with the building that you probably know is the most dramatic, which is the Air Community Center. This is a rather old building, and there is quite a lot of work that needs to happen in order to get it to a more usable state, let's say. No, that's not fair. It is a completely usable building, but there are a lot of very old components. So things like the steel roof structure inside of the arena space, it's flaking, it's rusting. You can see it from the arena floor, so it definitely needs to be cleaned and repainted. Things like the exterior concrete masonry is pretty beat up. The coating is all worn off. The masonry is pretty deteriorated. The metal siding is corroded in a lot of cases. It's pretty badly stained. The metal roof is original, and while you can't really see it very well from anywhere except on the canopy roof out front, you can tell that it is definitely aged. There are leaks on the inside, so it has probably exceeded its useful life. So we're calling for replacement of all these things in the years 2024 and 2025. As well, the ice plant system itself, which is also at end of service life come 2025. We've similarly we've included an amount for dealing with any major repairs of the rink itself. While we can't see that without doing some really intensive scoping, and there's nothing immediately concerning about it. A conservative approach is to basically budget an amount for dealing with the ice pad itself, because the piping, all of the mechanical works that run through the slab itself for producing the ice will very likely need some attention at the same time as the plant replacement itself. So there's a lot of work that is being called out there. And to be clear, this is again work that is highlighting to keep the building in a state of good repair, which is, it's usable, it's functional, it has a degree of aesthetics that are required for whatever the facility is. It is not saying that if you don't do this, the building is going to collapse. The condition is rough, but it is not poor. So again, it's important to keep that context in mind for all of these. If there was conditions that existed that gave us some concern for structural compromise or health and safety conditions, those would be flagged in a manner that's a little more severe than this, because this is just saying you need to do these things to make the building look nice, keep the building usable. So we don't, and I can say pretty confidently, we don't have any life safety or structural concerns for any of these buildings. So we didn't have to flag anything that way. So again, remember our context here. When I'm saying there's close to, actually it might be over $2 million over a 2-year period of work that needs to be done to keep this building usable in its current state. That is the context that we're talking about. It is about the bulk of the cost in this case is the ice plant itself. Obviously, you can't have an ice rink without an ice plant. So if you want to keep using it as an ice rink, this is work that needs to be addressed. It's also not taking into account things like, I know you have a brand new arena facility. This report ignores politics, let's say. So it doesn't care that you have another perfectly functioning arena that is close by that can be used elsewhere. This is specific for this building itself, and ignoring all other context of the municipality.
Any questions, councilors? You're doing great, Kelly. Next.
Wonderful, thank you. So next is a nice facility, the fire station. So there was nothing at this facility that needed immediate attention. There's some small things like the replacement of sealants and the giving the interior a bit of an upgrade. That is pretty much it for the short term. When you can see in the bar graph, it hits a pretty substantial sum come 2030. That is all just end of life repair and replacement kind of work. So it's, again, the idea when you're looking at these sort of reports is come 2029, 2028, you start looking seriously at the projections for 2030, saying we need to have money available to do this work sometime within this time frame. We're not wizards. We can't predict the future. So 2030 is quite a ways off. What we're telling you here is that somewhere within this time window, these things are going to need to be addressed. Some things will last quite a long time. Sometimes they won't need any attention at all. Some things will deteriorate faster between now and then. So you'll have to deal with them sooner. That's why I say start looking at this sort of stuff a couple years ahead of time, because there's no sense in waiting for a report that it would have been 7 years old by that point saying you need to replace your windows if you already know your windows are a disaster. So this is a budgeting tool to help you project out funding for this period of time. So the fire station, pretty good shape.
No questions, Carrie on coming. Thank you.
The public library. So there was a little bit of work that we called out for early in the study period, namely a leaking window, some older asphalt shingles at the back of the building, and then water damage as a result of the leaking window. That stuff is relatively minor, but we call it out anyways, because if you don't do it, water damage especially expands over time, and it causes more damage and ends up requiring more repair work, more costs to deal with it. So it is one of those things where we will call this out because you should deal with it. It'll probably cost you a couple $1,000s, but that's if you don't do that now, in 2 years' time, it could be costing you exponentially more. So again, relatively small issues for this one. Probably the biggest thing is the asphalt shingles in the back half of the building for long term. Otherwise, things are in pretty good shape here.
Carry on, Kelly, I don't see any questions.
Excellent. Just stop me if there are. Branston Park, this one is very simple because it is a single pavilion. It's in pretty good shape. The roadway itself, the asphalt is pretty beat up, so it is worth considering redoing that in the near future. And we call out things like asphalt. Asphalt can last a pretty long time, but as it degrades, it degrades exponentially, starting with the first crack. So it's cracked around the edges right now. There's no major heaving, there's no major depressions, and there's no even real potholes. But we flag it now for a 1-year period because if you allow it to get to that state, that's where you start having things like tripping becoming hazards, or even just damaging personal vehicles for people using the property, which obviously you don't want it to get to that state. So our approach here is fairly conservative in that regard because we know and everybody knows that you can extend the life of asphalt out by repairing it continuously, or just having a different level of tolerance for how degraded it is degraded. Ours is quite high. So we generally don't want to see, well, we're calling out things like even the most minor cracking and projecting life based on that. So in this case, because the cracking around the edges in particular and through the center was bad in some locations, we know it's not going to get any better and it's going to deteriorate pretty quickly from there. So that is why we're calling it out for being redone in 2025. Centennial Park, this one included a lot of different components. I've highlighted the pavilion here because it was really the only major structure to look at. The only other one is the pedestrian bridge. So in this case, we're calling out for replacement of the shakes because they're starting to flake off in a lot of cases. In all fairness, you can do selective replacement of shakes, meaning you could do, I think this is an octagon, so you could do 1/8 of it at a time if you chose to. I'm probably the worst person in the world to ask about how a thing would look in terms of aesthetics. So it is much more simple for us to say, do the whole thing because it keeps it looking consistent. That said, there's usually an option in between that is a major repair that maintains a lot of it. So that is definitely a thing that's worth considering when you're looking at something like shakes. We don't have the time or the budget to put through all of the possible options for dealing with this sort of thing. We usually just tackle it as a major repair for things like mechanical equipment or overall replacement for components like this. But we do know that there is some gray space in there and there is room for discussion for strategies on all of these things. If it is already known what the strategy is going to be, we can implement it within this study. And it just comes out within the literature that goes along with it. So for the moment, this is calling out for replacement, which might be a little aggressive. And as well, maybe the most major component for the whole study is replacing of the guardrails for the pedestrian bridge. They're old, they're loose, they're not hazardous at this stage, but you don't have a whole lot of time left for them. It's wood, so that shouldn't be surprising to anybody. And they really should be dealt with before they cause a major problem. So that is the bulk of the cost that we've presented in 2024 here. The rest of the park looks pretty excellent, actually. So there's not a lot of projected costs throughout the study period.
Yeah.
Clyde Park is another very simple one, a single pavilion with a concrete pad. There wasn't really anything worth drawing attention to here, except for a street lamp in the parking lot that is pretty old by this stage. Some of the casing is broken, and really, it's probably more important that the head gets replaced with something like an LED, just because I believe it still has an old HID in there, which, while functional, the lens is completely fogged over, so it's going to be producing a very limited amount of light. Other than that, the park looks great. Cohen Park, there's a lot going on in this one. Really nothing major. It is a very new facility comparatively. So here we're calling out the replacement of the electric, an electric unit here, which was fairly corroded, if I'm recalling correctly, and just regrading of the walking trail. It's a granular walking trail that runs around basically the perimeter of the site, and it's a bit overgrown. It's a bit uneven. While that's not necessarily a major concern, it is for the sake of keeping the path as a path. We're recommending regrading it on a fairly regular basis. That it's not a tremendous cost, but it is getting flagged here. The North Dumfries Community Complex. This is a very new facility, as you're all aware, and it's in very good shape. So we don't have anything in the short term here as a major concern, but we do have end of life repairs kind of piling up in year 2031, as you can see here. Again, these are projected, so the recommendation is that you definitely look at them sooner and try and space them out so that you're not ultimately trying to cram $3 million worth of major repair work all in the same time frame. These things should get spaced out in a method that makes more sense based on actual construction. Just because having too many items of work happen within the same year, one, it's extremely disruptive to the facility, but also it can cause conflicts with having multiple contractors trying to execute work within the same space. But this is all projected fairly far. So the immediate future, there's not a whole lot of work here that needs to get done that isn't just maintenance work. The Public Works building, so there was 4 facilities here. These ones get a little more ambiguous in terms of what you need to do, because these buildings serve a very specific function, and things like heating in these spaces, while important, it's not, because they're not occupied all the time, it's not at the top of a list of priorities the same way that an occupied building would be. Similarly, the condition of siding and whatnot, basically we try to look at it as, if it's keeping the weather out, it's doing its job. Maybe it's insulated, maybe it's not, maybe it's comfortable, maybe it's not. We're trying to do our analysis on these buildings based on their function, not just as an ambiguous theoretically occupied building. So we've called out some things like repairing of some of the vertical siding, because it's been driven into, it's in pretty rough shape, especially in the Quonset hut. It's also actively leaking, so we're calling out for repairs and replacement of the siding in a lot of cases. Same with the really old wood windows in the Quonset hut. They're basically just holes in the building at this stage that have a glass shaped plug in them, but they're not really doing a whole lot to keep the weather out anymore. Do these buildings really need windows? No, but they are there, and so we are trying to compromise our review based on, this is a window, therefore we should analyze it as a window, but we understand that the building doesn't actually need one. And if you were to just completely remove it and side over it, it wouldn't actually cause a problem. So it's another scenario where there's a lot of different strategies you could use to deal with these issues. The issues primarily are, they're just letting water in the building, siding as well. So it's the idea, the report is trying to point out that there is work that should be done in the short term to deal with that specifically, but there's a lot of options in terms of how you can deal with that. Beyond that, there's a septic bed for the main shop that we understand is not functioning the way it should, so we've got allowances included for that. It's a theoretical allowance because obviously we can't see exactly what the problem is, but we made a point of trying to get a reasonable allowance in there for doing buried work, which is innately expensive. Other than that, small things like dealing with lighting and dealing with old corroded and or non-functional heating systems. Minor things by comparison. The Roseville Community Center. So this one had some relatively minor things in the early years, mostly just dealing with the aged masonry. So it's an older building. There is some deteriorated masonry. It's not in a terrible state, but it is again one of those things where if you don't deal with it in the short term, the problem gets bigger and then eventually gets very expensive. So generally speaking, with masonry, we recommend touching it in some way with every 20 to 25 years, just to make sure that any problems that are manifested don't really get out of hand and start causing major interior damage. So we've got costs in there that allow for that. And then refinishing of the old wood siding. The siding itself is not in terrible shape, but the stain is completely worn off in some cases. And if you don't deal with that in the short term, it'll turn into a mess of rotten wood. So the recommendation is just doing short-term refinishing. Beyond that, dealing with some of the wood windows. I'm not sure what the status is in terms of how your municipality deals with historic buildings, or if this is even designated. I don't remember off the top of my head, but old wood windows, they're let's say less than ideal in terms of function, but sometimes there are historical partners that demand that we keep them there. That is generally okay, but we have to be. It just means that we have to be okay with windows being in a state that doesn't perform ideally. So either way, they think we can do things like repairing of the wood framing and redoing of seals and that sort of thing, just to keep the weather out as much as possible. But what we do acknowledge that if you have to leave the wood in place, there's only so much you can do in order to keep them energy efficient and that sort of thing. Schmid Park. There was a lot going on at this one. It was half the park was basically under construction and fenced off. So we kept our review outside of that space because the assumption there is that because it's still under construction, there should still be construction reviews happening, which we don't want to have any conflict within the context of this report. So couple that with everything should be brand new and in good working condition. So we didn't, it's important to delineate the space just because we didn't want this to turn into a deficiency report that conflicts with your general contractor's deficiency report. We don't have any business in that space, so we kept out of it. We did deal with and review all of the finished tennis courts, for example, and the rest of the park area and the structure shown above, as well as a pavilion that's just behind it. So here there wasn't a whole lot to look at. Things are generally in good shape. I think the note here might actually be for the wrong part, because I think these are for Victoria Park, which is last. This one in particular, I believe there was some soffit damage on the pavilion and some water staining on the inside. The shingles are all new, so the water staining is assumed to be from before that happened, which was recent, or from before the shingle replacement, which was recent. So it's just repairing water damage, repairing the damaged siding, that sort of thing. So sorry for the mess up on the slide here. That's my mistake.
Let's do PowerPoint for us and send us the appropriate updated copy, because I don't want to put me at the
Yes.
with the brand new tennis courts need to be tennis court repairs.
Yes, absolutely. So but again, this is just presentation information that got messed up, I believe. So that should not be reflected in the report. So again, I apologize for that.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, and you're done, Kelly?
So the last one is Victoria Park. This is where the lower, so yeah, this is an exact copy of the previous slide, so that's my mistake. So this is where these lower stairs to the pavilion are being called out, where the upper stairs that actually enter into the pavilion, those were recently replaced and they look fantastic. The lower stairs, while they are still functional, the concrete is really beat up. There are large hollow spots, and while they're stable right now, they probably won't be stable for very long. So they should be either repaired or completely replaced. It's a relatively small section, so it's not a tremendous cost. And then here, the tennis courts, the surface of them is it's aged and it's heaved. I think it was probably recoated fairly recently because the coloring is holding up really well, but the asphalt itself is cracking, and the fence, it looks like something is driven into the fencing around it, and a lot of the posts are leaning. Either way, it needs to get, at the very least, it could be repaired, they could be straightened out, or replace the entire thing. I believe we've called out just for a repair in this case, but that is the bulk of the cost in 2024. A huge amount of work has already happened in this park already. So I understand there was the washroom building that we're looking at in this photo is completely new, and it was in very good condition as a result. There's a couple other facilities, a shed and a batting cage that were also in good shape, and there was a building that was removed from service. I'm not exactly sure when, but it doesn't exist anymore, so it doesn't matter, I guess. So yes, this park in general was in good shape. There's just a couple of things that, in order to keep using it as it is, should be addressed. And that is the end. So if there are any questions, by all means, the floor is yours.
My question is perhaps more for staff. Like, was there anything that was surprising in this report for staff? Or was this pretty much aligned with what staff was writing this report?
Ms. Winters.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Williams, no, there was nothing surprising at all. A couple of things we know we need to move up. We have a little bit more time, but nothing surprising at all.
See no other questions. Thank you for your report, Kelly. It was very informative. I really enjoyed reading it. Can I have the motion, please, Councillor Osnick?
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Chile, that the presentation received from Kelly Warden from Zion Engineers and Building Scientists on the building condition assessments related to report number FIN 27-2023 be received with thanks.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Kelly. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
So, can I have the adjournment, Councillor Williams, please?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Holman, that council adjourned to sit as committee of the whole.
All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Now we're going to say, so we're going to move to committee of the whole. We're going to go to the finance section. Is there any member of council that will need to speak to any of the items on 10.1?
10.1.1 or
Well, any of them under there. So 10.1, 1, 2, yes, 10.10. 10.1, 1 to 10.15. Facilities condition, which is a report we just got. Interim tax levy bylaw, borrowing bylaw, draft budget, process, and fees and charges. Seeing none, I believe Councillor Osner, you have the motion. We do not have to read it in its entirety, you can just do the headings.
this is the moved by myself, second by Councillor Chile, that the committee of the whole recommend the following items be approved as presented as outlined in staff reports listed in the finance function area. Do you want me to just list the numbers or list?
You can just read like the financial report 27-23 facilities condition assessment, and then go to the next.
So 10.1.1 FIM 27-2023 facilities condition assessment report. 10.1.2 FIM 28-2023-2024 interim tax levy bylaw. 10.1.3 FIM report 29-2023 2024 borrowing bylaw. 10.1.4 FIM 30-2023 2024 draft budget, and 10.1.5 FIM 31-2023 2024 fees and charges.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, we already had the exact same motions over here. Ten point one.
I got Council Williams on the next one. Oh, it's on word for word almost.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Oh, no. No. All in favor of moving this motion? Carrie, thank you. They were done as individual motions if they did not pass as a group.
Yes.
So these ones are to be discarded. And as they passed as a group. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we are counts. So we approved it, everybody carried it? Thank you. So the next we have is there's no developmental services function areas. Next are the community social services function areas. Is there any item that anyone wishes to pull on those? It's the air rockets, the road resurfacing, and the governance, and the roads resurfacing. That's it for that one. Council Williams.
I just have a quick clarification question for 10.3.1.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Through my mayor to staff, I was just wondering if I could get a better understanding of any the privacy around the live bar and video streaming. So how it's going to be handled if like how will people know that this is assurance that this is turned off when the air rockets are not playing, and how people would like it felt like when I was reading through it that live bar basically owned everything. So what was the way that you can make sure that your ice rink hockey time is not being streamed without appropriate permissions? And I wasn't totally getting that.
Privacy.
Correct.
Ms. Winters.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Council Williams. I do have the president of the girls hockey, Air Hockey, Amy here, and I know that she's going to help us out and answer some of these questions. But I can tell you that Amy and her team will have control of that, the computer that does the blackout times, and she'll be making sure that it's off on those times. How do we assure that? We're going to have to trust her. She's fairly trustworthy. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Amy. Sure. No.
Yeah.
Your trip's circuit.
So yes, so as Ms. Winters said, I would be the one in control. I've already been in contact with the Air Centennials, the Air Flames, as well as the Air Skating Club, and we will be running a joint calendar, and only things that are added to that joint calendar will be streamed. Otherwise, that will be turned off. So specifically, Air Centennials games will be turned off because they are required to use their streaming service through Flow Hockey. But they have requested that their practices be added. So it will be based on that joint calendar that will be run through Live Barn, and I will be the one loading those calendars every week.
And who's your backup?
My Vice President, Becca Perryman.
Any further questions? I believe, Ms. Williams has, Council Williams has the motion, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Williman, that the committee of the whole recommend the following items be approved as presented as outlined in the staff reports listed in the community service function area 10.3.1, RDC 26-2023 Air Rockets live bar video streaming. That council received a rec report number 26-2023, and that council endorsed the addition of the live bar video streaming to the North Dumfries Community Complex. And three, that council allows staff to work with the Air Rockets on the protocols within the license agreement. 10.3.2 PW-31-2023 ND-2024-C1-RFT- roads resurfacing 2024 tender bid. One, that PW report number 31-2023 be received. Two, and the council approve the award of contract ND-2024-C1-RFT for road resurfacing 2024 the amount of $1,928,817.30 net of HST to Econ Secum Incorporated, Franco Construction. Three, and a project contingency of $250,000 net of HST rebate be established. Four, and a budget of $75,000 net of HST be included for geotechnical and material testing works as required. Five, and that council authorize staff to include additional roads resurfacing as a provisional item up to a maximum amount of $680,269.26 net of HST with Econ Secum Incorporated. Six, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents to facilitate the completion of this project.
All those in favor? Thank you, Barry. And next we have government services, 10.4.1 to 10.4.3, off-road vehicles, the recommendation is to status quo, establishing committee of adjustment, and November incident summary report. Is there any questions or comments? Councilor Taylor.
In regards to 10.4.1, follow up on off-road vehicles, just like to, I had an opportunity to go around to speak to some residents after receiving this information. And just like to pass along the information to council and the staff as to some of the responses.
Would you like this motion pulled and ask to pass the other two separately?
I have no problem with the other two, so it's fine.
So we can pull the first one. Right, so we will put the big motion aside. We will address 10.4.2 and 10.4.3. I believe Councilor Williams, who has 10.4.2, please. Councilor Williams. I have Williams with roll and second. Not the big report, we're doing the individual ones.
Another point of order, I did receive the same report that Councilor Mullins just read, so I think there might be a little bit of duplicity in the.
No. First, it's government services, and we do all the motions all at once in government services, unless someone wants to pull one of them and discuss it. Then we pull them and do them individually. If you don't have the individual motions, I can lend you mine.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Williman, that CLK report number 19-2023 be received. And council confirmed through the passage of implementing bylaw the appointment of the 5 members of council as the committee of adjustment for the corporation of the township of North Dumfries for the purposes of satisfying section 44(1) of the Planning Act. 2 and 3, and that bylaw number 3449-23 being a bylaw to appoint the 5 members of council as the committee of adjustment for the time period extending until December 31st, 2024, and the primary responsibilities of the committee be enacted.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I know I have it. And then next one is Councilor Tilly, and that is 10.4.3. You have that one, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Othner, that FD report 14/2023 be received for purposes of information.
All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Now, Now we will turn to 10.4.1, and Councillor Tilly, you have the floor.
As I was mentioning, I did have an opportunity to speak with some of the residents in North Dumfries, wards 3 and 4, just in regards to what this potentially, how it is affect them. So I spoke to around 5 families that would be affected by the denial of the traveling. The summary of the responses were, and I'm not going to get into much detail here, is their biggest disappointment is it feels like North Dumfries is giving nothing to the rural areas again by refusing this. Is just what their opinion is. Everything goes to air. Commonality, sorry, just something being expressed, so I'm going to pass it along. Part of their business, being farmers, is to travel from field to field and building to building on their properties, and not all are located, being hectares of land being spoken about. There's a lot of space to be covered in different vehicles. No, it's the only method to drive a slow-moving tractor from location, or not to jump from another vehicle to another vehicle. So it's primarily the ones I spoke to use side-by-sides as their ORVs to do this traveling, and it's disappointing to them to hear that it's something that they're being told that that's not acceptable. That was one of the prominent answers. So, and then there's several of them also noted, because it is part of their business, they're going to continue doing something to that effect. That's part of the business, how they conduct, and it's unfair for them to be restricted in what they feel in conducting that. So I did have a really positive suggestion as a possibility. Just want to throw it out here as a conversation point, to try the trial of an implement of a permit program, where charge a reasonable price from North Dumfries for a permit that allows an ORV usage for a reasonable price, like $65 or something. Permit issued only with proof of insurance, proof of ownership, proof of off-road plate, etc. Anything that would be required, or anything to that pertinence, as a means to just basically make sure that if there was something like happening, it would be done by the right people, being done in the most safest manner. So that was a suggestion that's put forward. So that's, I just wanted to pass on to the council and staff that this is something that, and that's only the few people that did get to speak to.
So you basically were deciding whether to agree with the staff report or to turn it down, and after that, you can actually ask for a look in a permit system, if council so wishes to go that way. But right now, we're looking at the staff report and to whether to accept it or turn it down. So I believe Councillor Austin, you have the report, and you have comments, go ahead.
Yeah, can I have a comment? Because that was one of my comments from the very beginning, that the rural areas, farmers move from field to field in their gators, and gators are considered off-road vehicles too. And I believe the township runs some Kubotas and stuff like that, which are technically off-road vehicles as well. And you can travel from the ACC with mulch and stuff like that. They have to travel. They're usually not on the back of trailers from what I see. So there are some off-road vehicles that are considered work usage. And like I mentioned, that was my concern with the farmers and people out in the rural communities. For example, some people plow driveways with an off-road vehicle. When you get to the end of the road or end of the driveway, you got to turn around on the road. So that is an issue. I don't find it necessary to make a permit system, in my opinion, because I don't think we should charge them for having to use the sides of the roads, like on the dirt shoulders. However, excuse me, maybe there's something with like when they drive their tractors and that, there's lights, there's sign, like the triangles, you can have different things that signify that they're a farm vehicle, rather than, some kid that's just joyriding on the road. That's what this problem stems all from, and unfortunately, it's bad apples that ruin the whole batch. It's the kids running around dangerously on the roads. And out in the rural areas, you know, I can imagine if the farmer's gonna move from field to field, they're gonna do it anyway, regardless of what bylaw we put in place.
So we have three options. We can pass this, we can turn it down, or we can defer. And if we defer, then we give direction to staff and we be a little more specific. And we say the types of things we have to be very clear on what we want to direct them towards. So first I am going to ask Councillor Austin to read the motion. Councillor Rose, did you have a comment?
I had a clarification question on the motion. I don't know if we want to read the motion first. And then ask.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My question is, if this law doesn't pass, it doesn't mean that joyriding is now allowed. I just want to clarify
If this
that.
motion doesn't pass, the existing bylaw remains enacted until such a time as it's been changed to revised. Which is mean, basically it's passing as status quo. Is that correct, C.L. McNeely? Or am I wrong? I can be wrong.
So, Madam Mayor, I think Councillor Rome's question more is whether we pass this bylaw or not. The aspect of illegally using a road, in other words, you're unlicensed, do not have insurance, you're underage. That is a violation of the Highway Traffic Act, regardless of whatever actions Township Council does. Because there's a minimum threshold to use public highway. Specifically related to ORVs. There's a certain measurement below the posted speed that an operator is to travel. They have to have license, insurance, where applicable. In other words, the vehicle comes fitted with a seatbelt. Not all ORVs do, but where the vehicle becomes fitted with a seatbelt, it's obviously to be worn. And the helmet, once again, for those types of vehicles where helmet is part of the fit of operation. And you have to be 16 older and have a valid driver's license. Those are the minimum requirements regardless. Any violation of one or more of those aspects, whether we have a bylaw or not, is a violation of the Highway Traffic Act that's enforceable by the Waterloo Region Police Service.
Ladies and council members, let's go through the motion. Now, if we turn it down, we will give direction to staff later. Deferring it means it's still open, but it's 7 o'clock. We have to use the next one. Go ahead.
And also, sorry, one quick comment that if nothing's changing with the bylaw, nothing's changed from what happened last year, last month, or 3 years ago. From what
Please read the
departments
motion.
did.
We have to get into the motion.
So moved by myself, second by Councilor Chili, that bylaw report number 14-2023 be received and that no changes be made to the current off-road vehicles bylaw number 3210-20, and that staff be directed to design and roll out an education awareness campaign to advise area residents of the intent and obligations associated with the current provisions and restrictions associated with utilizing the local road network for off-road vehicles.
All those in favor? You're in favor of it? Okay. All those in favor? As status quo.
So,
Keeping the bylaw.
so keeping bylaws that, so not approving the changes at this point. So as,
That's right, as it says.
well, that was, sorry. So I'm against.
Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried then. Thank you. And now we will switch over to committee of the adjustment. Yeah, committee of the adjustment. We're moving into committee of adjustment. So do we have a motion? Yes, Councillor Rowland, please.
To adjourn?
Yes, you turn the top. Yes, it's a committee of adjustment.
The motion I have is that the committee of the whole, it's hereby adjourned, the council.
Oh, okay.
Myself and Council Williams, that pursuant to planning activity, this would be, I don't know, but it's.
Councillor Austin?
Yes, sir.
You have a motion.
Moved by myself, second by Council Chili, that the council meeting be adjourned at 7:02 PM to set as committee of adjustment pursuant to the Provisions Act of the Planning Act.
Can I go on a motion? I don't know my notes. Thank you so much. Next, all in favor? Carrie, thank you. Carrie, members of the public can participate in the Committee of Adjustment meetings in the following manners. Attend the meeting in person to speak to an application. Individuals who are present in the person can speak to an application when it is reached on the agenda and will be asked to approach the podium to speak, providing their name to the public for the public record. All speakers are provided with 5 minutes to address an application. The clerk will take each speaker and advise the chair when the time limit has passed. And second, register with the clerk's division in advance to attend the electronically via Zoom. Members of the public who have registered to attend electronically were provided with the Zoom link to join the meeting and have indicated to which application they would like to speak. Staff will move these individuals who have registered into the meeting to speak in the order of the application being heard. Third, members of the public can submit written comments to the clerk's division. Written comments are provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. 7.1 PD 55-2023 A-14/23 1091 New Dundee Road. Notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer will record everyone who comments on this application and attends in person or electronically. These individuals will be notified of the decision of the convening of future meetings. So if you're here, please make sure, is there a sign-in sheet for that you signed in? Good, okay, thank you. I'd like to introduce Michael Campos, Manager of Planning, who will present this application.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, senior staff, and members of the public. My name is Michael Campos, and I'm the manager of planning at the township. I'm here today to present to you a public information report relating to a minor variance application that has been received for the property at 1091 New Dundee Road, application number A-14/23. And the purpose of this meeting today is to provide an overview of the proposal received, to solicit comments, and to identify the issues or matters to be assessed by staff as we move forward with the review of the application. So the subject property in question today is located on the south side of New Dundee Road, situated between Cameron Road to the east and Kings Road to the west, as is shown on the location map on your screen. The subject property is shaped as a parallelogram, providing 230 meters of frontage onto New Dundee Road and a total lot area of approximately 4.3 hectares. Presently, the property is occupied with one single detached dwelling, as well as one accessory warehouse building, and is serviced by private well and septic systems. Surrounding land uses generally include agricultural related uses and rural residential properties south of New Dundee Road. And to the north of New Dundee Road, residential and agricultural related uses are also located within the boundaries of the city of Kitchener. The subject property is designated rural area and protected countryside by the township's official plan and is zoned Z1 agriculture under the township zoning bylaw number 689/83. And so the applicant has submitted a minor variance application to facilitate the development of a new principal residential dwelling on the property and to recognize the existing dwelling as a coach house. Shown on this slide is the conceptual site plan for the subject property. The applicant is proposing to construct a new residential dwelling with a total area of 238 square meters, or approximately 2,500 square feet, 1 story in height with a rear walkout and an attached garage. The proposed dwelling is planned to be located on an elevated area of the property, which is currently vacant and sits immediately north of the existing accessory warehouse building on the western side of the property. The proposed new dwelling is being designed to be located approximately 23 meters from the front yard property line and approximately 30 meters from the interior side yard property. The property currently enjoys two accesses from New Dundee Road. The first access provides a direct driving path to the existing accessory warehouse building. And the applicant is proposing that this access be used as a shared access for both the new principal dwelling and for the warehouse to the rear. The existing residential dwelling, which the applicant is proposing to be recognized as a coach house, is located to the east of the accessory warehouse and is 208 square meters, or about 2,200 square feet in size, provides a single-story facade, an attached garage, and a walkout basement. And the second driveway access provides direct access to the coach house. As shown on your screen, we have two images of the property taken from New Dundee Road, if looking southward. On the first image on the left, you can see the two existing driveway accesses, each leading to their respective building. The existing dwelling, which is proposed to be recognized as a coach house, is the building on the left, and on the right is the existing accessory warehouse. The photo on the right identifies the proposed location of the new principal dwelling, which is planned to sit on an elevated area of the property just north of the existing warehouse building. And the driveway access shown in this image will act as a shared access to both the new principal dwelling and to the warehouse. And so in order to facilitate the development of the new residential dwelling and to recognize the existing dwelling as a coach house, the applicant is seeking relief from three provisions of the township zoning bylaw. They include the following. Section 6.40.2, which establishes that a coach house shall only be permitted within a zone in association with a single detached dwelling. So relief is required from this provision temporarily, as the proposed coach house will be the only existing dwelling on the property until such time as the new principal dwelling is constructed. Once the new principal dwelling is constructed, the existing dwelling will be recognized as a coach house in association with the new single detached dwelling. Secondly, section 6.40.7, which establishes the size of the coach house, must not be greater than 40% of the footprint of the principal dwelling. And the applicant is seeking relief from this provision to permit the coach house to be 87.3% of the footprint of the principal dwelling, which equates to an increase in the maximum allowable size by 47.3%. And finally, section 6.40.7 establishes that a basement is not permitted within a coach house. And the applicant is seeking relief from this provision as the existing dwelling, which is proposed to be recognized as a coach house, has already been constructed with a basement. And planning staff have received one written piece of correspondence earlier today from a neighboring property owner in support of the application, stating that they support the idea of adding a dwelling to the existing property. No other correspondence has been received to date. Any submitted correspondence received this evening or prior to a future committee meeting will be included and addressed as part of a future recommendation report from staff. Regarding agency correspondence received through the circulation review period, there have been no concerns or objections from our Engineering Public Works Department, Canada Post, the Region of Waterloo, or the Waterloo Catholic District School Board. The Grand River Conservation Area also has no objections to the approval of the minor variance application, pending the final location of all new development and site alteration associated with the new dwelling. The planning staff are continuing to await comments from a few internal departments and outside agencies before we finalize our report. And so staff recommends that all comments and correspondence received from members of the public and government agencies through the consultation process be returned to staff for a future report to the committee on the disposition of this matter. And as staff begin to prepare a final recommendation on this application, the following considerations will be had. All comments and correspondence received during the consultation process, whether the development meets the criteria of the 4 tests for a minor variance, whether the proposed development is desirable for the property, the impact of the proposed development on surrounding properties, any conditions that should be affixed to the minor variance. And that was my last one. This concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions that members of the council may have.
Thank you, Michael. Well done. Brandon from, do you want to speak?
Sure. Say a few words.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Flowing here from GSP Group. Okay. I'm joined tonight as well by Jack and Jane Bosman, the owners of the property. I think Mr. Campbell's done a great job outlining what the application is. It's a unique property. It's it's zoned and designated agricultural. but it's really a rural estate type of lot. There are a number of provisions within the township zoning bylaw as far as the requirements for a coach house or an additional dwelling unit. There are 3 highlighted in the report that we do need to vary, but I think there's about a dozen or so, and all the other tests or requirements of the zoning bylaw are satisfied with this application. Essentially, it's an opportunity for Jack and Jane to build a new primary dwelling on the property and have their one of the children and family move into the existing home. So it's a chance to, better utilize a large rural estate type of property. There's 2 existing driveways. The homes will be far enough separated that, I think that the family will still get along. But we think it's a great opportunity to make a little more efficient use of a large rural estate style lot. Even though it is zoned and designated agriculturally, it really doesn't. It's not an agricultural parcel. But that is one of the reasons that we've applied for the coach house permissions, is that the official plan and the regional policies wouldn't support a severance in this situation. So a coach house can achieve many of the same goals, and the ultimate goal of having 2 houses on the property and grandchildren and one of their children living in the other house. So that's it. We're here to answer any questions. Jack and Jane as well. So.
Thank you. Jack, did you want to make any comments? You don't have to.
Not necessarily. I'm willing to answer any questions if council would have any questions.
Thank you. And if nobody else on the topic to ask, councilors, any questions? Councilor Williams and then Councilor Jim.
My question is just more along the lines of how this property ended up with 2 driveways. There's interesting configuration.
Through the mayor, I believe, and Jack can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a large warehouse building on the at the rear of the property where they previously said, or they have site-specific zoning permission to allow. Jack had a sales business that operated out of there, so I think it was just a separation of the 2, sort of the main driveway for the house and the one for the warehouse building.
Councilor Jimmy.
I believe I've got my information off the map, but is the 1109 New Dundee Road neighbors, is that the neighbors immediately beside, closest to where the new built? I guess if they're happy, they're the most effective.
Any further questions, Councilor Rowan?
Mayor, so I did go and look at the property and I did speak with the property owner. It does make sense for this to be a separate lot, but if the region doesn't allow it, then it's a huge property, so it makes sense to have a second dwelling and then keep the original house still in good shape, keep that for the children. I think it makes perfect sense.
I'm still fighting that issue for you two, by the way. But anyway, so any other further questions? Can I have the motion from Councilor Williams?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Ullman, that PD report number 55-2023 -A-14/23 on 1091 New Dundee Road be received. 2, and that all comments and correspondence received through the consultation process be returned to staff for consideration in the future report to the committee on the disposition of this matter.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Approval of the mini meetings, Councilor Kelly, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Osmer, that council receive for the purpose of information the following items: regional council minutes dated October 25th, 2023, and November 22nd. I'm gonna read the other one. Sorry. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Osmer, that the committee of adjustment approved the meeting minutes dated November 28th, 2023.
All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
I'm gonna read it.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the and the adjournment needs Councilor Rowan of committee adjustment. We'll go back to Councilor.
Moved by myself and by Councilor Williams, that pursuant to planning act, that's going to be adjourned at 7:16 p.m. and the council will be called back.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Bless you. All right. Now we're whatever motion that I put on. So we've done the 10.4.1.2.3, motion to adjourn the committee of the whole and sit as council. So roll them, ladies.
Moved by my Bordeaux, second by Council Will, the committee of the whole adjourned and Council will go back.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. And the next is resolutions that presented to committee of the whole. Councilor Austin, please.
Which one are we on now?
11.1.1. It's financial reports. You got it?
Adopt the resolution.
This one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Chile, that council adopt the resolutions as presented by the committee of the whole dated December 11th, 2023. FIN 27/2023 Facilities Condition Assessment Report. FIN 28/2023-2024 Interim Tax Levy Bylaw. FIN 29/2023-2024 Borrowing Bylaw. FIN 30/2023-2024 Draft Budget. FIN 31/2023-2024 Fees and Charges. Rec 26/2023 Air Rocket Slide Barn Video Streaming. DW 31/2023 ND-2024-C1-RFT- Resurfacing 2024 Tender Award. Bylaw 16/2023 Follow Up Off-Road Vehicles. CLK 19/2023 Establishing a Committee of Adjustment. And FD 14/2023 November 2023 Incident Summary Report.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. And next we have 11.2. Again, the public planning minute meetings, Councilor Williams.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Nolan, that council approve the following minutes, public planning meeting minutes, November 20, 2023.
All those in favor? Carrie, thank you. Next up is correspondence, letters of extended family, child care. So anything that anyone wanted to push it forward or discuss? Council Williams.
14.1.4.
1.1.4.
Yes.
Council Williams.
14.1.3.
Okay. Any others? Okay, Councilor, in order, Councilor Williams, go ahead.
I just think that we should promote supporting the city commissioner in this. Their ask for additional lands in basically along our border base. So I think it might show a good sort of friendship with the city commissioner if we supported that move.
Any other thoughts? Councilor Williams.
In one sense, I have no issue with it, but in another sense, I'm a bit concerned about that we're gonna run into similar issues we have in Cambridge where they just gonna view us as the next. It's Kitchener. As long as there's an understanding that, you know, the product is there, I don't know.
I like Ms. O'Brien I thought some of the wording was a little hard here. I thought if we stayed at arm's length, it would be safer, but I would support Kitchener in a lot of things. I have a really good relationship with the mayor there and everything else. But I thought this was a little hard for me and so I didn't want to get into that fight. Any other comments or questions about this? Like, do we support it? What's the consensus?
Good with arm's length.
What's that there?
I'm good with arm's length.
I read it, it's just the way it was written. It's very, very strong. I don't want to get into a fight between Kitchener and the region. So, the other one, Councilor Williams.
So I was reading about this program and it sounded really cool. I know we had something that we were investigating as well. So but I'm assuming that this is probably not the only organization that's reaching out. So I was just wondering if there was any information we had that the staff could provide. with regards to anything else that they've been researching around EV charging stations and stuff.
I believe I sent 3 or 4 to CEO and Amelia last week and a half. Go ahead, CEO and Amelia.
So Madam Mayor, Province of Ontario has provided a grant incentive program in the draft budget. In capital, you will see for 2024 an expenditure with a comparable provincial grant to allow us to install 2 EV level 2 charging stations. Both charging stations with dual ports. One would be here at the NDCC and the other would be at the Gibson Street National Parking Lot down there. We did have RIAC Electrical contractor look at the existing infrastructure, for lack of a term, in terms of the panel, its distribution, and what could be powered up without reworking the entire electrical distribution system. And we have the existing system can handle a level 2 charging station, and they've given us the unit cost of what the conduit will be, the cabling, controllers, and the like. And we include that then as part of that. So we have a discussion paper coming to Township Council as far as the first budget meeting to talk about this grant program, to try and secure funding through the grant program because it closes in January, as well as the next step. In other words, if we were to go ahead and if we were successful in getting the grant, we're not really equipped to actually deal with the ongoing maintenance of the EV charging stations. So we have a template agreement, and you and maybe asking the marketplace to find a partner that would actually be responsible to install their technology based on the infrastructure that we would provide, and then maintain the integrity of that system as we go forward. And essentially, we would just be receiving a stipend of money, consistent with the amount of energy used by an individual when they charge up.
No further comments. Can I have the motion, please, Councillor Larson?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Chile, that the following be received for the purposes of information. 1411, letter from Extended Family Waterloo Region, RE-ODSP. 1412, letter from Chatham Kent, RE-Social Assistance Payments. 1413, Kitchener Resolution, Regional Official Plan Review, and 1414, EV Charge On Program.
All those in favor? Carried, thank you. And next is 14.2, which is the Leisure and Lifestyle Advisory Committee meetings. Councillor Williams, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ullman, that council receive for the purpose of information the following items: like Leisure and Lifestyle Advisory Committee minutes dated October 18, 2023 and December 6, 2023.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. And next we have various minutes of different organizations. Councillor Tilley, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Osner, that council received for the purpose of information the following items: Regional Council minutes dated October 25th, 2023 and November 22nd, 2023. Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee, GRAAC, minutes dated September 28th, 2023 and October 26th, 2023.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Next motion, Councillor Tilley, in regards to installation and commission of a streetlight. That being section.
Would you like some background? Just read the.
I think it's self-explanatory.
Okay. Okay. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Williams, that council requests the Ministry of Transportation to install and commission a streetlight at the intersection of Highway 24, Brantford Highway, and Lockheed Road to improve the visibility and illumination at this location to improve overall safety, and that MPP Brian Riddell, Cambridge, be circulated a copy of this resolution.
All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. And next we have the bylaws, Councillor Bowman, please.
Moved by myself, by Council Williams, that the following bylaws be taken as read first and second time. 17.1 bylaw number 3449-23 being a bylaw to establish committee adjustment. 17.2 bylaw number 3450-23 being a bylaw to provide for interim tax levy 2024. 17.3 bylaw number 3451-23 being a bylaw to borrow funds temporarily to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024. And 17.4 bylaw number 3453-23 being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for 2024.
All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor Austin, third reading of the bylaws, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Chile, that the following bylaws be read, taken and read a third time and finally passed. 17.1 bylaw number 3449-23 being a bylaw to establish committee of adjustment. 17.2 bylaw number 3450-23 being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy in 2024. 17.3 bylaw number 3451-23 being a bylaw to borrow funds temporarily to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024. And 17.4 bylaw number 3453-23 being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for 2024.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Is there any other business? Councillor Austin.
Can we fix these agendas? Here, I find them extremely disorganized. I'm sorry, but I find this extremely disorganized that we're all shuffling papers trying to figure out who's got. He has the same motions that Councilor
No.
has the same, but he has the same motion that Rod's reading.
It's when they get the package and it's all the agenda items under the government services, let's say, and we want to pull an item, then that top big motion that the person has gets discarded. And we pull them individually, so those are the individuals following it. Sometimes they change the movers and seconds. Councilor Tilly.
I think the fact that it's moving, if that's the case, it's moving from one counselor to another, that is confusing. It should stay within the same counselor and then it should be broken apart that way. Because that was very confusing today. It's a little bit different than we know to do, that's all.
Yeah.
And to get back to my point, like
Yes.
everything's back. So it's okay. When I look at the agenda, okay, so what I don't understand is if we're going into committee of adjustment or wherever we're going in, why isn't that listed first? All the things in there listed first, then we come out of that and everything that's listed after that. I've said this like 3 times, and I just find it hard to follow. I can't imagine people listening or watching on YouTube or watching from home trying to follow this. And I don't like feeling disorganized, and this whole thing with shuffling papers and have I got the right motion, and this isn't, we're at 7, all of a sudden we're down to 11, and then we're back to 10, and then we're down to 14, and this is crazy. It has to be chronological order as to how we're doing this meeting to be organized.
It's because we're stopping a meeting and starting a meeting. So committee of adjustment has to be a separate meeting. Usually committee of adjustment is not made up of council.
Yeah, but
It's made up of the public, but we took that over. So we had
how
to,
this meeting started.
we had to start this meeting as the committee meeting, which starts at 6 o'clock. Then a committee of adjustments at 7 has to start.
I totally understand, but you look at the agenda. We started with 8.1 today. There's 7.1, 7.2 listed before 8.1. And that didn't come till 7 o'clock.
Yeah, because they're committee of adjustment, you're right.
I don't get it. It just makes absolutely no
And
sense.
it's not easy for them. So what they're doing is they're starting the committee meeting. And they're saying, okay, we assume council's gonna be at this stage at 7 o'clock, which is when committee of adjustment has to start. So we're gonna number them in chronological order. So that's why it became 7.2, 7.3. But after that is 8.1, because that's when we go back into the other meeting.
Okay, but at 6 o'clock, we started with 8.1.
No, you didn't.
The Scion
They want-
presentation,
no.
did we not start with the Scion presentation? Number one. We didn't have the, New Dundee Road presentation,
That's a committee, yes.
but it's listed.
Go ahead, Christina.
If I may, we were following the procedural bylaw, so we did start with the call to order number 1 through 6. And then, yes, we skipped number 7 on the agenda package because being a committee of the adjustment, that must begin at 7 o'clock. So rather than just sitting and waiting till 7, we continued on with the agenda. However, I hear your point and we will review the procedural bylaw to see if there's something we can do in the future.
And if we have to change the procedural bylaw, I suggest that we do, because that's my point. We skipped over 7.1, 7.2 to go to 8.1 and then came back to 7.1, 7.2 at 7 o'clock. Why is 7.1, 7.2 right underneath? Right above what we started the public meeting?
Because that's how the procedural bylaw reads and that's what we're following. But I've heard your concern and we will definitely look at it so that the next combined meeting doesn't go that.
Does anybody else in council feel this is completely disorganized, or is it?
It does get confusing. Another thing that gets confusing is when we're doing a whole governance service with all the items. And if we want to pull one, we have to throw all those motions aside and go to the individual motions.
And I understand if we run over time, that we've got to stop where we
Yes.
are and go back and then come back. Understand that completely, but let's put it in order so that we
Right.
know that we're coming back.
But, and Christina, would it be more logical if it's 6 o'clock, we start a commissioner discussion and got it done with, and then council starts to say,
Madam Mayor, I'm not sure under our procedural bylaws and the planning act, if we have to start all of those at 7 or if we are allowed to have that at 6. I'd have to defer that to you.
we will trust our staff to look into that. Okay, CEO McLean is cracking to speak. Go ahead, CEO McLean.
I'll be brief, Madam Mayor. In our procedural bylaw, council wanted the ability for the public to participate in public meeting type settings under the Planning Act at 7 o'clock. Premise being allow them the opportunity to get home or to leave work, set the house up and return. There is no specific time in the Planning Act that says thou shalt have it at a certain hour. That is a decision of council. Okay, it's just in our past practice and articulated in our procedural bylaws at 7 o'clock start time. Today's agenda brought in the planning aspect only because it's our only meeting for the month of December. We're gonna have the same thing in January where we only have one business meeting. We're combining 2 meetings into 1 session. Okay. And we do this again in the summertime when we only collapse down to 1 meeting in each of July and August. Generally speaking, these planning files, like committee adjustment, are on their own dedicated evening, and it's usually the 4th Tuesday of the month.
So they will look at making simple revising the procedural bylaw. Now can we go back to the confirmatory bylaw, which is your motion, Council Williams?
I thought we were in other business. I was bringing up other business.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Roman, that bylaw number 3452-23 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on December 11, 2023, be read a first, second, third time, and be finally passed, signed, and sealed by the mayor and clerk.
All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. And next, the adjournment, Councilor Tilly, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Hopner, that whereas business before this council meeting completed at 7:36 p.m. and be it resolved that this meeting adjourns and meets again on Monday, January 15th, in the new year at 6 p.m. for a special council meeting.
All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. So is this our final meeting before Christmas?